Born without arms or legs, many thought Nick Vujicic's life would be nothing more than a story of dependence, darkness, and pity. But Nick proved otherwise. He showed the world that the greatest limits in life are not physical, but mental. This is the story of how a boy rejected by his own fate became a global symbol of resilience, faith, and unstoppable success. Nick was born on December 4, 1982, in Australia, with a rare disorder called tetra amelia syndrome, which left him without all four limbs. The moment the doctor handed Nick to his mother, she fainted. His father stood frozen, in disbelief. They were deeply religious people who had prayed throughout the pregnancy for a healthy child. But when they held Nick, what they felt wasn't joy. It was shock, confusion, and heartbreak. Nick's childhood was filled with endless struggles, not just physical, but emotional. At school, other children called him a freak. He often came home in tears, asking his mom, "Why did God make me like this?" And over time, he stopped asking, not because he found peace, but because his hope had faded. At just 8 years old, Nick tried to end his life by drowning himself in the bathtub. He thought, if this is what life is going to be, why bother living? But after that attempt, something shifted in him. He realized that the real pain wasn't in having no limbs. It was in believing he had no worth. That thought became the turning point of his life. Nick began to push himself in ways most couldn't imagine. He learned to type using the 2 small toes on his left foot. He trained himself to brush his teeth, write, pour water, and even swim. He taught himself how to roll, move independently, and build routines. What took others days took him years, but he never gave up. He told himself, "As long as I'm alive, there's a reason I'm here." At 17, Nick was invited to speak at a school event. He shared his story with the students. As he spoke, the room fell silent, and then many broke into tears. Afterward, a girl came up to him, hugged him tightly, and said, "Thank you, you just saved my life." For the first time, Nick realized that his pain had a purpose. His wounds had become bridges to those silently suffering. From that day forward, Nick began a new journey. He founded an organization called Life Without Limbs and traveled the world to speak about hope, self-worth, and faith. He stood before thousands of students at Harvard and Stanford. He spoke to business leaders, politicians, people with disabilities, and children living in slums. His story moved people not because it was dramatic, but because it was real. Nick became a best-selling author. His first book, Life Without Limits, was translated into dozens of languages. He didn't just talk about positivity, he lived it. His message was rooted in forgiveness, perseverance, gratitude, and above all, love. Despite having no arms or legs, Nick got married to a beautiful woman named Kanae, and they now have 4 children. He once said, "I don't need arms to hug because my heart is big enough. I don't need legs to walk because faith is my strongest step." Nick has surfed, played football, and done things no one thought possible for someone with his condition. But his greatest achievement isn't in these feats, it's in the lives he's changed. So what truly made Nick Vujicic who he is? The answer is faith, courage, and love. He believes that every human being has value. What makes us special isn't our appearance, but how we rise after we fall. Every scar, when seen through the lens of love and purpose, becomes a crown. Nick's story challenges millions to look inward and ask, how am I living? What am I wasting? Are the limits I feel even real, or are they just fears in disguise? He once said, if you can't get a miracle, be a miracle. And that's exactly what he's become, a living miracle for those who had stopped believing in themselves.